Hello and welcome to Fresh Perspectives. My name is Gail, and my guest today is Norm Green. He's one of two commissioners from the Chautauqua County Board of Elections. Why is that there are two commissioners?
Well, in New York State, unlike other states, some states have this process, but most don't. We have a bipartisan system. It's in the New York State Constitution that's how the elections are to be run, and basically it's a check and balance system. The Democrats make sure the Republicans aren't cheating, and vice versa.
Oh, that's the reason for it. Tell me about yourself. Is this your full-time job?
It is my full-time job. Yes. People always say, "What do you do?" It's a busy job that definitely is 52 weeks of the year, and I'm from Fredonia myself originally, and live right here in the Mayville area now. And to become an election commissioner, the party chooses their election commissioner, confirmed by the county legislature. So the Democrats choose election commissioner and the Republicans choose an election commissioner, the committee people of the parties, and that's how I became the election commissioner.
Do they vote for you, or?
Yeah, the county committee members, we have 99 election districts in Chautauqua County. The Democrats have two committee people in each district. The Republicans have two committee people in each district. They meet once every 4 years when our term expires and determine whether they want to reappoint us or not. And I've been reappointed continuously since 1999.
Okay, is a certain education required?
There's no educational requirement. It's certainly a job that you need to be familiar with politics, and you need to be familiar with the election process. And so hopefully the parties choose someone who is going to be able to do the job. But there's nothing in the law that says exactly what the requirements. You have to have a bachelor's degree or whatever. Both Brian Abram and myself, or Brian Abram, the Republican commissioner, are both have college education, but that's not required.
That's not what got you the job?
No.
Okay. Is there anything else you'd like us to know about yourself? You were mentioning having been in the Army, was it?
Yeah, I'm a United States Army veteran, lifelong Chautauqua County person, other than the 3 years that I
And you
spent in the Army.
were a cook in the Army.
I was a cook, yes, I was.
Okay. When is the general election?
It's Tuesday, November 7th. Every poll site in Chautauqua County is always open on Election Day. Everybody received a card in August telling them where their poll site was. The hours are 6 a.m. to 9 p.m.
Okay. Let's see. What are your... you are also the County Democratic Party chair.
I am. It seems like it might be a little bit of a conflict.
Yeah, is it?
Well, people rightfully have a concern that politics doesn't enter into the office. Unlike, for instance, in Pennsylvania, where they have a nonpartisan elections office. Again, New York State, we have a bipartisan. It's meant to be a little edgy in the office. It's meant to be someone's double checking and triple checking, making sure that the other side isn't doing something that would give them an unfair advantage on Election Day. So it's the system we have, meant to be a partisan. It's bipartisan. That means two partisans going at it.
Okay. So that's not a conflict. Okay. How does the Board of Elections function?
The Board of Elections has the two commissioners that are at the top, and we actually are a board, just like it sounds, Board of Elections, and we make determinations as to how we're going to do things in the office. As I always talk about staples, unless both board commissioners agree to buy staples, we won't have staples for the stapler. So both the Democratic and the Republican commissioner have to make sure that all the expenses are agreed upon with each other. We have 6 full-time staff, 3 Democrats, 3 Republicans. I always make the analogy, it's kind of like Noah's Ark. You know, everything we do is, you know, done 2 at a time, and we go get the mail, and it's 2 people go get the mail, a Democrat and a Republican.
Seriously? You go to the post office to get it?
We have a post office, your absentee ballots. You expect those absentee ballots are that somebody didn't drop something along the way. If somebody does anything, the other party is there watching, making sure that everything is done correctly and properly. Same thing goes on Election Day. We hire over 600 election inspectors on Election Day, and they're all divided up by Democrats and Republicans in a bipartisan system. There's complaints about that. I mean, and legitimate complaints. And they're concerned that, gee, I shouldn't have to be, you know, kowtowing to the 2 major parties in the United States of America. This isn't American. It is American. You know, we're a 2-party system. We're not a parliamentary system. That doesn't necessarily. People always say, well, how come it's the Democrats and Republicans? The New York State Constitution says it will be the 2 major parties of the state of New York. It doesn't say it'll be Democrats and Republicans. And the 2 major parties, it's spelled out. It's determined by who came in first and who came in second in the last gubernatorial election. So if the Democrat came in third and the Libertarian came in second, the Libertarians would come in and run the Board of Elections with the Republicans.
Yeah, I think that some people feel they're being discriminated against. And it probably sounds that way, but you have your reasons for it.
Well, it's the law. It's not so much our reasons. That's the system we have. I mean, I believe in the system we have. I think it's a system that makes sure. I don't believe in that. In Ohio and some states, you'll have a person that, you know, it will be a nonpartisan so-called person running the elections board. Actually, in Ohio, it isn't a nonpartisan person, but they'll have either a Democrat or a Republican running the elections. And, you know, that means, you know, we've chosen this, you know, supposedly, you know, honest person. And, you know, it's like, oh, we're going to believe in this person's going to be not partisan. It's going to be like a judge. You know, personally, I'd rather go before a group that I have. You know, I have someone who's advocating for me. You know, and advocating against the opposite position. So it's kind of like a courtroom. You know, where you have a defense counsel and you have a prosecution, and the two will determine how the process moves forward. And people are always able to appeal our rulings and our decisions to a higher court. The Supreme Court is able to overturn any decision the Board of Elections makes.
Yes. Now, the one question that just popped into my head concerning that is, I do believe I worked in Mayville at the polls in Mayville last year.
Thank you for your service. Thank you.
What?
Thank you for your service.
Oh, you're welcome. And there was only one poll site coordinator. Now, that's not bipartisan, is it?
That's a very good point. Brian and I made a decision a long time ago. Not all counties have poll site coordinators.
Oh, is that right?
So this is a local decision.
It's a Chautauqua County decision.
And we decided that without regard to politics, we were going to put somebody that was competent, who was going to be able to be someone who would say, hey, we're going to put the table here, we're going to put the table there. But in the end, the poll site was run by you. It was run by the election inspectors, and the poll site coordinator was more of a traffic cop, more of a person to make sure that the materials were all there in the morning and the place was unlocked.
Right. Yeah, you know, I remember last year there were some situations where it came in handy having someone like the person that we had, and because there were some problems that we needed her to help work out.
And what it was is, you know, it's a function of, you know, Brian and Abram and myself, the Republican commissioner, you know, want to see smooth running operations. We do want to have a business running there In addition, we also need to have the protections of the Democrat and Republican. But that one person is highly trained, the poll site coordinator. We train them on jamming papers, on jamming ballots from the voting machine. We train them on all the nuances. We give them higher training than an election inspector has, so that we make sure that the process runs smoothly. In Chautauqua County, we're proud of the fact that people can come in and vote in 5 to 10 minutes and get out. You hear stories of people in New York City that are waiting 2 and 3 hours. In Florida, you hear them waiting 6 hours. Ohio, waiting 4 hours. We want to make sure that we have a business operation that we're efficient. But then again, democracy is more important, and that fairness, and that people feel that the system is working. Brian Abram, I always talk about, we speak before most of the schools in Chautauqua County, the high school seniors, and we always talk about, gee, the next day, we don't want you questioning when that picture is on the front page of the newspaper, the new county executive is, that you're wondering, did he really have the most votes? Well, I don't think anybody questions that in Chautauqua County. They know that if the Democrat were to win, that the Republican election commissioner agreed that person won.
Yeah. I know there's quite a bit to this election things. Now, we have bipartisan teams working together at the polls on the election. And let's talk about these teams.
Well, first off, these are election inspectors. These are people from the community that we've recruited, and we're always in need of election inspectors. And so we need more people. And they're trained by our trainers, which Tony and Ruth, everybody knows Tony and Ruth, the trainers. These are two people that have other jobs, but they also...
Oh, do they really?
Yes, they're not full-time staff of the Board of Elections, but they come in and they professionally train the election inspectors. And this is important because someone goes to work, any job that we've ever had, we want to go to work thinking that we understand what we're doing. And so they do a good job of making sure that happens, and they also do a good job of letting the election inspectors know how a bipartisan team is supposed to work. And a voter comes in, we have poll books, they sign in the poll book. If the Democrat was helping them, the Republican was watching. The Republican was watching to make sure that that the signature matched, that the process was going exactly how the citizens of Chautauqua County would expect it to go. So that's how the process
And
works.
I assume that Tony and Ruth are a bipartisan team.
Yep, Ruth's the Republican and Tony's the Democrat.
Okay.
But I can tell you that when you go to the class,
You can't tell which is
tell.
which.
No.
Well, they both seem like really nice people. Tell us about the sign team. What does the sign team do on election
well, on
day?
election day, we once again, we're a business operation, and in Chautauqua County, we do things in a different way than maybe another county does it, and we assign people to be to do different jobs at the poll site, and the sign team is it's an important job. In the morning, they go out and make sure all the signage is up, and you need to be able to find us, and you need to be able, when you get in the building, you need to be able to see where you need to go to vote, and it needs to be a good process. But there's other teams in addition to that. There's the voting machine team, and they're making sure that when you get to the scanner that you don't have a problem. They're trained not to be watching what you're doing, so that the security of the vote, the secret ballot, is maintained. And then, of course, you have table teams, and table team is they signed you in.
And as far as the signs go, you'll usually find one sign a certain amount of feet from the door. And tell our viewers
Well,
what that's all about.
you know,
It tells you how many feet you are
100 feet from the polling
from the polling.
from the entrance of the polling site. That means you can't. We put a sign up that says no electioneering. That means that we
No campaigning?
We can't have campaigning. You can't be out there passing out literature. You can't be out there saying, "Well, for Joe Schmo, for whatever," and that's just not allowed. We're pretty lax here in Chautauqua County, and we don't jump on people because they have a campaign button. Other counties are out there, making people take off their campaign button, or somebody has a derogatory shirt. As long as you're coming and going, our election inspectors, as you know, are trained to hey, as long as nobody's really causing trouble. I always say that we're a little more laid back. We're a little more Ohio here, a little more Midwest, and and so we don't want to confront people. We just, as long as people move in and move out, and don't electioneer, we're happy.
Yeah, there's something about gone in 5 minutes or something like that.
Well, at the end of the night, you have a process of people say, well, how do these results get up on the internet? And they're up on a site called votechautauqua.com. Everything we do is through this internet site. So the advent of the internet made our life like amazingly easier. And better for the public. But so on election night, data discs are taken. One data disc is taken out of the voting machine, is put into a sealed bag that says, if found lost or stolen, report to the sheriff's department. It'd be a serious issue if one was was found. And a bipartisan team, a 2-member team, goes from the poll site and gone in 5 minutes. That data disc needs to be out of the poll site, returned to the Board of Elections so that we can have election results early and accurately.
Oh, okay. Do you need any help on election day?
No, we're always recruiting for election inspectors, and so the recommendation, the basis of everything we do, and the simplest thing is on the internet, votechautauqua.com. For those people that aren't able to access the internet, to send us a note saying, hey, I want to be an election inspector. We do, of course, receive phone calls on 753-4580. Call the county, and you'll be connected to the Board of Elections, and we'll be glad to talk. People who say, we go back to the Democrat and Republican, we have to have equal amounts of people other than the poll site coordinator who are Democrats and Republicans at the poll site. So that the non-affiliated voter, or the voter that's affiliated with another minor party, says, well, gee, I can't be an election inspector. The law says that you need to be a Democrat or Republican. So if you wanted to switch to one of those parties, I always say pick a party, any party, just Democrat or Republican if you want to vote, if you want to work on at the polls. And if you switch, we'll immediately, even though the switch hasn't formally take effect, we'll immediately put you in an assignment. And you get paid. Nobody's getting rich being an election inspector. The election inspectors are paid minimum wage, and so that ends up being, it's a 16-hour day, and so it's about $160 that you'll make as the election inspector. Nice thing about it is the United States government, the IRS, says we don't have to take taxes out. So if you're a retired person and that's a pain in the neck for me because I don't have taxes that I have to claim, I don't file an income tax form. We don't take taxes out. That's not to say that you don't have to pay taxes. If you make $80,000 a year just because we didn't take taxes out of you, you're required to report that. But
yeah, I did get one of those forms in the mail from the Board of Elections to send in along with the income tax return. So
a 1099.
Well,
regardless.
is it a W-2 form or something like that?
Yeah, we don't issue those
because I did get something in the mail that we had to send in.
You had to
so-
definitely add it to your, if you've got income in your household, you definitely have to claim, it's not tax-free, but we don't take taxes out, so that helps the senior citizens.
Oh, yeah. Yeah, and a lot of retired people are doing, working as poll site coordinators.
I would say it's great, well, as poll site coordinators or as election inspectors. You know, it's a great opportunity to get $160, and a lot of times we need you for other elections and other tasks, and just in time for Christmas.
Now,
if you're
as
getting
far
Christmas presents.
as far as other elections go, do they contact you to let you know if you've had the training that they might need you, like at a different election, or do you volunteer?
No, it's we assign people. Like we just got done with the primary election, and the primary election was just in Dunkirk and Harmony and in Mina and in Clymer and in Hanover, and so it wasn't a county-wide election. And so we only needed people to work in those particular areas, so we didn't need all of our election inspectors.
Oh, okay. Who will be on the ballot this year?
This year our major elections, we have 2 Supreme Court justices, which will be the top of the ballot. They run throughout the 8th Judicial District. That's the 8 counties of Western New York, and they're going to be on there, and the word is they'll be cross-endorsed. But then the big ones for us are the county executive once every 4 years, and the county clerk once every 4 years. And then all the county legislators this year will be up for election. And in every town in Chautauqua County, we either have a couple council people and a supervisor. Not all the supervisors, because we're on 4-year terms, are up. The 2 cities, we have elections. We have village elections going on in about 10 different villages in the county. So,
And that'll be on the same day in November also.
right. Yeah, if I could make an editorial comment, the unfortunate part is last year we had 72% voter turnout. 72%, which was, we were one of the
For
highest.
the whole county?
For the whole county. We're one of the highest in the state. You see nationally it was around 40%. So we have people, they like to vote. We appreciate it. They don't like to vote this year. This year, in the county executive, county legislature year, we'll have a very low, we'll have about 30%, which is half what we had before. And the truth is that as much as Donald Trump affects us, the President of the United States affects us, he'll never be in Chautauqua County, probably. He's not somebody that's going to affect us, locally. Everybody wants to vote for President of the United States, but that county executive, then the county legislature, they affect us, greatly. I mean, I think this year about, the speed cars that they just put in place. We have a problem in the fire departments in Chautauqua County that, volunteers aren't there during the daytime, and so. We have trained medical personnel. If we didn't elect legislators, people who were interested in this, then this would have never taken place.
Did I ask you yet what the deadline is to register to vote?
Well, the deadline to register to vote is October 13th, and it's a Friday. So you would go to vote.
Oh, Friday the 13th.
Oh, I didn't think of that. Yeah, so I'm not a superstitious person.
Well, actually, I remember when I was a kid going to school, every time I had to take a test on Friday the 13th, I usually got a 100 on it. So maybe it's not so bad after all. Okay.
You were asking earlier why people do have to register to vote. And they do have to register to vote because that's the system of making sure that we don't have people voting in 2 different places.
Oh, yeah.
So, if we didn't allow registering to vote, if we allowed people just to just walk up and cast a ballot, they'd be voting in Cattaraugus County and in Allegheny County. They'd be, some people, and that's a problem. But we are in a technological age where we could have, a date that wasn't so far away from the election. That's my opinion. That you should be able to register to vote right up to the day of the election, or you should have automatic registration. I get a driver's license, I should automatically be registered to vote.
Yeah, I had to. People were asking me. Some woman asked me, she came to vote herself, and when she was signing in, she said, can my son hasn't registered to vote yet, can he still do that? And I said, no, I said I believe that the deadline was October 14th. So she said, okay, I'll let him know that then. I guess he would have liked to vote, but we want people to know that it is important, if there is a deadline, to make sure you get registered. And we'll put that on the bulletin board that shows up at certain times of the day on the
Great.
on the channel 5. So oh yeah, I wanted to talk about how to fill out the ballot properly without making any mistakes. I noticed when I was working at a table last year that several different people made mistakes and had to come back to the table for a second ballot, and one man even had to come back for a third, and at that point one of the ladies that was working at the ballot machines, she told him that he'd better let them help him, because this is your third ballot, and if you make another mistake, your vote's not going to count. So I thought that we should talk about filling out the ballot properly.
Well, I would hope that it shouldn't be that big of a deal to people. It's an oval, and you fill in, darkening the oval. It's a system that's been around for a long time. When I was a child, we used to take Iowa Basic Skills tests. This is and the Iowa Basic Skills, you filled out you darkened in the oval. The system is pretty the system is pretty old. So it's darkened in the circle, not an X over the circle, not a circle around the circle, the oval. It's darkening next to the person that you wish to vote. At the top of the ballot, where it says the office, it'll say vote for 1, or say vote for 2. So you'll have 2 votes. You don't have to vote for 2 people, but they have 2 votes. So you can't go in and like them all. Sometimes you see that where, I want to vote for everybody. And I appreciate that. A lot of good people running against a lot of good people. But it's just a matter of darkening the oval, using the markers that we give you. The markers have been determined that those are the best markers for the machine to pick up your filling in of the oval. And then you take it to the machine. The machine is a scanner, and it scans the ballot to see where ovals have been filled in. So if you put an X somewhere else, that shouldn't cause you a problem on the ballot, but it won't give you a vote that counts. Usually people that have done something in the perimeter of the ballot, and and the election inspector said, well, 3 times you're out. The third one, should be given to the election inspectors and put into the on-scan ballot slot, and then it would be hand counted at the end of the night. For instance, somebody with Parkinson's disease, whose hands are shaky, they may not be able to fill in the oval. And that's fine, and the ballot will be counted at the end of the night by the inspectors.
I did notice that some people had relatives that helped them with things like that. But as far as the mistakes go, there was one woman who had mistakenly marked the wrong oval. I think it was for the proposition, maybe. And she came over she wasn't from the district that I was doing, but I was closest to where they fill out the ballots. And she came over and she said, well, I filled in the wrong one by mistake, and then I crossed it out. And then I filled in the right one. Is that okay? And I said, no, you'll have to go back to the table that you got your ballot from, that's for your district, in order to get a second ballot. And I said that the machine won't accept that if...
Well, what happened is you had filled in both ovals, and the machine can't recognize the fact that you put an X through it. And it said, oh, gee, I don't want that. I mean, it doesn't have a brain.
No, no. So anyways, it was pretty interesting. And then I just wanted to mention, there was another experience that I had. People were, you know, if they saw in the books where the people sign in, there's a place where you have to write down the number of the ballot. And then the poll site coordinator that fills that in signs their initials.
The election inspector.
Yeah, and there was this one man who was acting like he thought I was doing something kind of fishy or something, and he goes, what are those letters, that GE there? Is that some sort of a code or something? And I go, no, it's my initials. So, and then I guess we're supposed to, if somebody makes a mistake and comes back and get another one, we draw a single line through the first ballot they had, and then...
you would void it out.
And then write down the number of the new ballot, and then there's a special package that we have to put the voided ballots in. That
a sealed bag.
A sealed bag.
No one would know how they voted.
Yeah, so so I'm assuming you just destroy those afterwards?
No.
No?
They get put all together, the whole counties. The first thing we have to do is account for every ballot. That's why you're putting 115 down, because we've given out 115 ballots at that point in time, and we have to have an accountability. We can't have...
So you count all of that after it gets back to the Board of Elections?
And they go into record storage, sealed, and in record storage we keep those there for 2 years. So the whole point of the system that we have is accountability. We should be able to go back 6 months after the election, and we could reconstruct the election. We could tell you exactly what took place. So nothing gets thrown away. Everything is there. 6 months later, we can sit there and we can figure it out for a judge or for a candidate that said, you know, I just never did believe that result. Well, come on in. We'll prove it to you. And so it's our job to have that evidence, the evidence of how people voted, and that's the great thing about the system that we have, is that we can reconstruct an election.
Wow. Okay, why might a person need to fill out what's known as an affidavit ballot?
Well, affidavit, if they show up at the poll site and their name is not in the book, they are at. First thing is determined, are they at the correct poll site and at the correct election district. Once it's determined that they are, we ask them to fill out an affidavit provisional ballot so that they can cast a vote on that day, and we can determine on another day if an error has been made or they're not in a poll book because of what's called an inactive voter. And a person becomes an inactive voter when we mail something to their house and the mail gets returned. And what happens, you know, a lot of times is that the mail got returned because they were on vacation, or you know, the mailman made a mistake. Not that the mailman or mailwoman makes mistakes, but you know, things do happen. A lot of times, you know, machines and the mail comes back. And if the mail comes back, federal law says they have to be moved into inactive status. They show up at the polls, they fill out this affidavit ballot, then that takes them out of inactive status. We send them a postcard, say, hey, your vote counted because you were a registered voter. Or possibly they have to fill out an affidavit ballot because you have to go to your new poll site and you've moved. So I moved from Jamestown to Mayville, but I never told the Board of Elections. That's okay, but you're going to have to fill out an affidavit. You're going to have to swear that, you know, I didn't, I am a registered voter in Chautauqua County, and that my vote should count. And then we'll move your records to Mayville, if that was the case, and the vote, and you'll get a postcard saying, "Hey, your vote counted."
Oh, okay. And those do not go through the machine, is that correct?
That's correct, because that requires research after the election by election staff. So a bipartisan team, once again, a Democrat and Republican, go through and determine, gee, is this person, maybe this person at the DMV registered to vote and we never got that information. We go back and look for that. We look at our own records. We research in any way possible as should this person be able to vote. So it doesn't go in the machine on election day, but it will get added to the election totals at the same time that we add the absentee ballots to the election totals.
Oh, okay. That was the next question I was going to ask is, if someone with an absentee ballot doesn't get it mailed in time, can they have someone deliver it for him to a polling place on election day?
Can I back up just a second?
Okay.
An election, as far as absentees, if you are going to be out of town on election day, you are entitled to an absentee ballot. You have to fill out an application, once again, available at votechautauqua.com. You mail it to us, and then we will mail you a ballot. We mail out the ballots the same day we get the applications, or people can come right over to the office and we'll have them apply there and give them the ballot there. The ballots are available and you get mailed out starting 1 month before the election, 32 days before the election. So in October 7th or 8th, we'll be mailing out ballots to people. And so they then get the ballot and they fill it out and they say, oh my gosh, I'm leaving. My daughter Mary, can you take it to the poll site? Absolutely. You could mail it to us, or you could have somebody deliver it to the poll site on election day.
Oh, okay. So as far as people dropping by the office to pick up absentee ballots, how do they find your office?
Well, we're at 7 North Erie Street. That is the Hall Clothier building, which is behind the Jurassic office building, behind the courthouse. So we're the one building without metal detection. So it makes it quick to go in. We're the same floor as the DMV. A lot of people visit the DMV. So once they know that, they realize, oh yeah, I know where your office is. And our floor is just the DMV and the Board of Elections. So they come in, fill out the application, and we give them a ballot, and they can vote it right there, or they can take it home and think about it.
Oh, so they can actually vote while they're there. They don't have to take it.
But that's a month before the election. I mean, right now we don't have the ballots.
Now, before up until what date?
It'll be October. Election's November 7th, so basically October the 7th will be the first day that you'll have ballots available.
Okay. In case of a power outage, and the machines can't work, what do you do in a situation like that?
Well, there's multiple pieces to that puzzle. One, we have flashlights, so that those are available if it gets dark, and of course in November it does get darker.
At least after supper it does, yeah.
Yep. So but even during the daytime, you're inside a building and you might need a flashlight. Some people might want to come back, but our machines have a battery inside, and the battery allows the voting machine scanners to run for 6 hours.
Oh, do they really?
Without any electric. And then we also have some power packs at the Board of Elections that we can bring in to allow the machines to run even longer. And so we're prepared for that eventuality. But the final piece of the puzzle is we always train election inspectors. It doesn't matter if the machine works, because all it matters is you come in, you sign in, we give you a ballot, you vote the ballot, and then we put it into a ballot box to scan those votes when the machine was repowered. So we never care that the voting machine doesn't work. Hey, we want it to work, but if it doesn't, it's that paper ballot. We could hand count it if we had to. We're going to make sure that
Is that why it got changed from the pulling the lever thing?
The lever machine was all goes back to the Florida election, where people were holding hanging chads. Young people aren't going to remember this, but were holding ballots up, and they were punch card ballots. And so the whole country had to change its system, because we said, hey, we can't have people out there doing antiquated things like this, and that was crazy to have the United States of America come down to a bunch of ballots with pregnant chads and hanging chads and et cetera. New York got caught up in that too. Everybody always says, oh, I love the lever machine. And you know what? Norm Green loved the lever machine too, because it was an easy machine for me to administer. It was simple. A lot simpler than the system we have now. But the truth is that we hadn't produced a mechanical lever voting machine since the 60s. The machines were wearing out. What happens is they're a system of gears inside of the voting machine. The gears would wear out. Hundreds of votes sometimes would not get captured. It was a dirty little secret. And we also couldn't reconstruct the election. We with a paper ballot, we can reconstruct the election. We have your paper ballot. We lock it. We seal it. We guard it. We make sure that we can reconstruct your election. We could never reconstruct the election with a lever machine.
Well, I'm glad I asked that, because it felt like we were kind of getting more old-fashioned instead of more modern.
Well, you know,
But,
in some states they didn't go to a paper ballot. They went to electronic voting, and you know, and thank goodness New York went to a paper ballot. It's a terrible system from the standpoint of, gee, it's cumbersome. I got to go fill in ovals, and you know, it's not fast and not quick. But democracy shouldn't be fast and quick.
Yeah.
It should be. I believe in it. You can reconstruct the election after it's over with. That I had that original piece of paper that I voted on, and yeah, it's a little more difficult, but it's a heck of a lot better for making sure that we have elections we can trust.
Yeah, okay, now it's starting to make sense to me. My sister, who lives in Pennsylvania, I think she said they did it on a computer or something.
Well, many of the counties, and it's a county by county decision, did go to a computer and a touchscreen machine in Pennsylvania. Some of the counties in Pennsylvania are now reversing their course and are adopting our technology, but for the most part, it's a touchscreen system, and you know, it never became more evident than this year. You know, when you talk about computers and hacking, and you know, so if you have a computer, you have the potential for hacking.
Right.
And in our particular case, we've taken lots of strides to make sure you can't hack our computers. But in the end, we still got that paper ballot that we can go back and hand count. So if the Russians suddenly had said that Hillary Clinton, they changed the election in Chautauqua County, and Hillary Clinton had won the election in a landslide, everybody say, well, I voted for Donald Trump. Well, we'd go back and hand count the ballots, and we would have found out that Donald Trump was the person who actually won Chautauqua County.
Okay, what does the county board do between elections?
Well, one of the things I always say about Chautauqua County is our founding fathers must have loved democracy. We have more than 500 elected officials in Chautauqua County, 27 towns, 2 cities. We now are down to 13 villages, 13 or 14. 14 Cherry Creek is about ready to go out of business. We have 18 school districts. We have to service all these elections. We service fire district elections. So it's a busy time. In addition to that, you know, we have 80,000 registered voters in Chautauqua County, and the 80,000 registered voters have to be kept track of. We have to move them, we have to notify them, we have to service their voting record. On election day, there's a demand by the voter, a good demand, and a demand that everything's perfect. And you know, we don't have a second day. The United States Constitution says that our elections will be held on the first Tuesday after the first Monday in November. We can't go the third Tuesday or the fourth Tuesday, or we can't put a sign up and say, hey, we didn't have all our records together. You know, so perfection takes time, and you know, and a lot of due diligence. And so we have to make sure of that. We also have to qualify all these elected officials for the ballot. We have to make sure that their names are on the ballot. And there's another thing. They got this expectation that their name is going to be spelled correctly and everything's going to be perfect and our program is going to be perfect. We test our machines 4 times a year. We have 100 voting machines in Chautauqua County. It's a never-ending job and a never-ending process and a never-ending goal of perfection.
There's a lot of red tape involved. Okay. How was the Board of Elections created in New York State?
Back in 1912, prior to 1912, we ran elections in every county through the county clerk's office. And in 1912, it was determined that we would change to a Board of Elections system, and we spun off away from the county clerk's office. And the Constitution was changed in New York, creating the boards of elections. Interestingly enough, we have a New York State Board of Elections, and the New York State Board of Elections cannot tell a county Board of Elections what to do.
Oh.
County Board of Elections is independent, and we answer to the voters and citizens of Chautauqua County. So the New York State Board of Elections could come in, make suggestions, they can investigate us, but they have no power to sit there and say, hey, don't do this. Do this. That's not to say that we don't have to follow election law, because we do, and so it all falls on us.
Yeah. Okay. What is the role of the county executive and county legislature in running the Board of Elections?
So the county, we're actually a wing of the county legislature. When we get, for instance, the commissioners get approved, they're approved only by the county legislature. It's one of the few times that the county executive doesn't sign off on an appointment, or there is no veto power. The legislature just does the background check and makes sure that they feel that this person's someone who's competent and able to be the election commissioner. So it's set up intentionally so politicians cannot exert pressure on us. They can't come down, and we've had that. We've had that where we had county attorneys. I've been here since '99, so you're not going to be able to point any finger at any one person. But we've had the county attorney come down and say, "You have to do this." Well, we don't have to do it because we've decided to do something, differently. The 2 commissioners have agreed to do that. So pressure by the government, it's intentional. It's meant so that the board can act independently and without fear. We do have a budget, though, and the budget's set every year by the county legislature and the county executive, and that's really their last word. They tell us how much money we can spend, and in Chautauqua County, we spend about $1 million a year for election services. A lot of money.
Yes, it is. What is the role of the... Oh, we already did that, didn't we? What is the role of the New York State Board of Elections? Yep. How does the county board work with the local school districts, villages, cities, and towns?
Well, it's interesting. The school districts, we provide voting machines for their elections. We put together their ballots for their elections. We print the ballots. We're one of 7 counties in the state of New York that print ballots ourselves in-house. Chautauqua County does that. Others go to election printers. Election printers are charging 47 cents for each one of those pieces of paper.
Wow.
And so we're able to do it for about a dime right here.
Good.
And we do that for the boards of elections for the Board of Educations around the county. We provide the service, and we help them hire election inspectors, and then we charge them just for our costs. We don't charge them, the taxpayers already paid for us, so we don't try to charge them again for what the taxpayers paid.
Okay, so you can actually get a job as an election inspector for the schools, for the school board elections?
We use the election inspectors that have already been trained, and we ask them to be the election inspectors. We work in conjunction with the district clerk of each school district to put the best people in there. So once you become an election inspector, once you're trained, anybody we're called today, we still need election inspectors for November. We'll have some special training. We already did some training in August to help fill our gaps. Once you get trained, there's lots of elections that we'll ask you to participate in.
Mm-hmm. Okay. What's unique about the New York election process? But I think we've kind of discussed that a lot.
Yeah, not really. I mean, we have discussed it, but the fact that we have the bipartisan Board of Elections. We also in New York State we have many political parties. In Pennsylvania, you get to be on one ballot line. In New York, the county executive candidates are on a total of 7 different ballot lines. And so in addition to the Democrat and Republican, they also are on other party lines. And so we have unique system that doesn't run the same way that it runs in other states.
So does our county have irregularities?
Irregularities? Sure. And anybody would say that we don't have irregularities would be not telling the truth. I mean, we recently had somebody, as an example, put in a photocopy of a petition that would qualify them for the ballot. That was an irregularity. We had, and we catch people. We had a gentleman who applied for an absentee ballot, and we determined that he also was registered to vote in Pennsylvania and applied for an absentee ballot there. So it was an irregularity. Was
this for the presidential election?
This was 5 years ago.
5 years ago?
Yeah, and so it was, what his thought process was, had a woman who was going to college at Fredonia State, and she also was from Syracuse, and so she'd cast ballots in 2 counties. We caught her. The district attorney dealt with her, and the district attorney, in the case of the gentleman in New York, the Pennsylvania district attorney, we determined that was the appropriate place for that action, and from that county. So things happen when people come in, and people are.
And this person actually deliberately voted in both places?
Yeah, and pled guilty to a felony. And so it's, if people sit there and say, oh, I think I can fool the system, I can do this, I can do that, it's a crime. And
what happens to somebody who participates in voter fraud?
That's up to the district attorney whether they're going to serve jail time or not, but they certainly can be put in jail for up to 5 years. Seems crazy that,
wow.
but we can't have people fooling around with democracy.
Right,
and,
right.
So it has to be a crime, and the district attorney takes it seriously.
Okay. Can we assure people that the voting machines cannot be hacked into?
Well,
in New York State.
Yeah,
anyway.
in New York State, we had a law right from the beginning that our voting systems were standalone. For instance, the voting machines themselves, there is no port, there is no Wi-Fi, there is no ability to get in the voting machine. The machines are all sealed. They're sealed by a bipartisan team at the Board of Elections. When they arrive at the poll site, the election inspectors, a bipartisan team, determines that same seal is there and it's intact. And if it wasn't intact, then the machine would be taken out of service. Even if a mistake was made. And so we then reseal the machine when it comes back, and we make sure that no one could even get inside the machine, or if they did get inside the machine, we would know that it took place. But in the end, so we have a machine that stands alone, that is not hooked up to the internet, that's not ever hooked up to a computer system, and we have a system that keeps track of that machine every step of the way. In addition, the programming of the machine is done on what's called an election management system, which also is standalone, isn't connected to the internet. What happens is a card gets burned on this. So the Russians, even if they wanted to, the so-called Russians, I don't know. And trust me, this was taken very seriously in New York State. We were in this last election, we were in constant contact with the FBI and the New York State Police. And the New York State, they were checking on us and making sure that New York State was secure. And our election management system, where we put together the ballots that show up, that allow you to scan your ballots, that's also a standalone system. We burn a card and then we put it into the machine and we seal the machine.
Okay. I'm going to make a quick announcement here, and that announcement is that it looks like, and we've been told this is okay, for those of you who might be interested, but we might be running over a few minutes here because we haven't gone through all the questions yet. And there's a few more questions. And since this is such an important topic, we are going to run over a few extra minutes. Okay. Now, what about campaign finance disclosure?
Well, anybody who runs for public office is required to report their expenditures and the money that they've raised if it's over $1,000, and they have to report it to the New York State Board of Elections, and we have an electronic filing, and anybody who wants to go to the New York State Board of Elections can see any amount of money that's being donated to anyone. You could put in the name Norman Green and you'll see anybody that I've contributed to. Mm-hmm. And you could just go in and look for Mike Ferguson, who's running for county executive, and you can see who contributed to his campaign. So it's on the internet. Anybody can look at it. Middle of the night, I wake up, I can't figure out what to do with myself. Well, look and see who's contributing to your favorite candidate or to his or her opponent.
Well, that's pretty interesting. What about election reform? What do you have to say about that?
Well, the Bernie Sanders campaign was very concerned about the election reform, particularly in our state. We're a closed system. We don't allow people to become a member of the Democratic or Republican Party or whatever party in the middle of the cycle. So from 20 days before the November 7th election, the 13th of October is the last day to change parties. So next year we're going to probably have a Democratic primary for Congress to determine who's going to take on Tom Reed. If you're not a member of the Democratic Party by October 13th, you can't vote in the primary. Well, a lot of people want to see that reform. They want to see closer to the primary election to be able to join a party. I want to join whatever party I want. For instance, in New Hampshire, you can do it right on election day. You can show up and vote. You can only vote in one primary, but anybody can vote in any primary as long as they're a registered voter. People want to see that. People want to see early voting. Mm-hmm. Early voting is something that the governor of the state and the New York State Assembly are in favor of. The Republican Senate has been opposed to early voting, and thus we don't have early voting, which means that I am at my leisure would be able to come and vote. You could vote at the Board of Elections, or we'll set up polling centers. Possibly Chautauqua Mall. We'd have or Wegmans or at the grocery store. We'd have a place for people to just go cast their ballot. Mm-hmm. So that's one of the reforms that is out there. People want to see registration, changing parties, being able to vote. They want to see it easier and quicker. One of the things that Oregon, as an example, has, which I'm not necessarily in favor of, has 100% mail-in. Everybody gets a ballot who's registered to vote, and then they got an envelope. They put it inside the envelope, put a stamp on it. They mail it back. They vote from home. They don't go to poll sites. Colorado, as an example, has early voting. So, and Ohio has it too. And you go and you vote early, and then go off and do your business. I don't have to wait till the election. The people that are opposed to it believe that elections should happen at a point in time certain. Mm-hmm. for instance, this last election wasn't a good example. You know, all that came out about Hillary Clinton's emails, all that came out about, you know, supposed Russian hacking. You know, this all came out a week before the election. If you had voted a month before the election, well, you wouldn't have that information in your arsenal to be able to make an intelligent decision about who you're going to vote for. So these election reforms aren't without controversy, but certainly New York State has that on its plate, and they're looking at it.
Well, there would still be an earliest date that you could vote early, right? What would that be?
Well, I would, and as the system sits now, it'd be a month before the election. And the reason why we're a month before the election, not 2 months before the election, because we hold our primary elections. Primary is where the parties determine, if they have more than one candidate, who their final candidate's going to be on the ballot. We hold our primary in September. Well, it's only a couple weeks later, and we're already doing our ballots. We have to print 80,000 ballots, and our 80,000 ballots have 99 different combinations. And so it's not a matter of 80,000. Oh, just go ahead and print them, and we got a whole bunch, and each one has an individual number. And so the ballot stub, not the ballot. I want people thinking we can track elections. Track it just back to what you said. We can't track how you voted. So it's a lot of work for us, and we need perfection. And so as it stands now, it'd be 30 days before the election. If we moved our primary election into April, well, that would give us a lot more time.
Okay. Do you think the time will ever come when the winners in an election are determined by popular vote?
I personally would doubt that, because to change the Constitution, it would require a majority of the states. Well, the small states don't want to see I believe it's 2/3. I'm not quite sure what the figure is. I should be better on the Constitution, but it were definitely more than half. And the small states don't want to see that, because if it came to a majority vote, the presidential candidates would be going to New York City, Los Angeles, Chicago, Dallas, Miami, the big cities, and that would be it. They would never be stopping at the small states, and so the small states fear that proposal. So you won't see a majority of the states ever agree to that.
Okay, I was going to ask you what the reason for the electoral colleges was in the first place, and I'm going to tell you what somebody told me it was, and then I'll see if you agree with it or not. Somebody told me that it was the average person was not considered smart enough to vote. That's what somebody told me the reason was. And I go, are you serious, But how do you feel about it?
Well, I'm not a constitutional law expert, but that was one of the things that people say, is that they wanted to have an indirect vote, but they also, more so, the states' rights were involved, and that each state should have a vote that counts, just because this was the sense. Just because, and we didn't have a Montana back then, just because Montana has 2 senators and 1 congressman, because they're so small, that doesn't mean that they shouldn't have a say in who becomes president of the United States. So they send to the Electoral College delegates, and allows them to have a say in the process, and it also forces whoever wins president of the United States to have to get a majority of the states. I mean, if we came down to I win Florida, Texas, California, New York, and that was all I needed, 4 states, four humongous states to win the election. Well, I don't think anybody thinks that would be a great idea and a great process. So, I'm arguing on that side. On the other side, the feeling is that the majority of the country should make the decision.
Yeah, that's what I was thinking was, that if the majority, I've seen this a few times just in recent years where the electoral colleges voted one president in, but the majority of the actual people had voted for the other person. So that's why I brought that up, But you think it might actually be a good idea for the...
I didn't say that. I was explaining the process, and and in the end, the electoral college, would if we found out that someone who had won had committed a high crime, and we found out on December 1, oh my God, they committed a high crime. We had no idea that they had murdered somebody.
Oh, gosh.
And then it does give you one last chance to make a different decision.
Mm-hmm. Okay. Did you have anything else you wanted to say?
Well, I would like to make it very clear that we have a website, votechautauqua.com, that has just so much information, and all the anybody can look up their own personal voter record. They can go in there and put their name and their date of birth in, and they can see that they're registered to vote. We have the voter registration forms, we have the absentee ballot applications there, we have shortly here we'll have links to the candidates' websites. So if you're trying to decide who am I going to vote for county executive or county clerk, you're going to be able to go in and look at their websites. The Board of Elections is here to serve. We really don't care. I know on election day I get a phone call all the time that people say, well, I thought I'd get a Republican call, because we do have Republican lines and Democratic lines. Election day, we don't really care who we are, Democrat or Republican. All we care about is having a fair election. As Brian and I always like to say, we just care about not having our picture on the front page of the newspaper. And if our picture's on the front page of the newspaper and it's not the candidate, that means there's trouble. And so we want to make sure we have great elections that are, people are, feel that that it was a fair election and they can believe in the result, and that they were treated fairly and they were efficiently moved in and out of the Board of Elections. But we're here to serve. Don't hesitate to contact the Board of Elections about anything regarding voting. We will be there for you.
I wanted to mention also that in the future I am planning on interviewing the Republican from the commissioner from the Board of Elections too. So that's something for all of you to look forward to. I want to say thank you for coming in today and sharing all of this really important information with us. And we've come to the end of another episode of Fresh Perspectives. I'll see the rest of you in a couple of weeks.